Tyr, the brave, god of war, honor, and justice in the vast pantheon of Norse mythology, was an honorable and powerful warrior. He stood in the congregation of the gods as a bastion of righteousness, a paragon of bravery, and the true embodiment of nobility. As a god of war, Tyr ruled the heat of combat, deciding victories with his divine presence. But unlike other gods of war from different mythologies, his power was not based solely on brute force or bloody mayhem. The god of justice was a strategist, a master of considered and balanced combat. He carried courage in his heart and strategy in his mind, which is why Viking warriors sought his blessing before battles. But beyond the battlefield, Tyr was also the god of law and justice. He maintained order in the Norse pantheon, his word was law, and his judgments were unappealable. He possessed an innate wisdom for justice, a sense of right and wrong deeper than the wells of Mimir. His undeniable courage and unwavering sense of duty led him to sacrifice his hand to trick and trap the wolf Fenrir, thus saving the gods and creation itself from premature destruction. And in the dark days of Ragnarok, it was foretold that Tyr, the one-armed god, would bravely face Garm, the fearsome dog of the underworld, in a final battle that would bring them both to their deaths. But such is the courage of the god, the noble, the brave, who throws himself into the fight without hesitation, doing his duty to the bitter end. Such was Tyr, a god of unmatched strength, bravery, and honor, a true hero among the gods of the Norsemen. In the divine realms of Asgard, the home of the gods, a love story blossomed between Odin, the Alfather, and the beautiful giantess Hymir. Hymir, whose beauty was as impressive as her incredible strength, captivated Odin, the king of the gods, with her strong character and profound wisdom. The god, wise and courageous, often wandered through the realms of the giants in the form of a wanderer, hiding his divinity under a cloak and a wide-brimmed hat. During one such journey, he met Hymir in her majestic fortress of ice and stone. She was unlike any giantess he had met before, not only because of her dazzling beauty but also because of her keen intelligence and indomitable spirit. Soon, Odin found in Hymir an equal companion, someone with whom he could share the depths of his wisdom and discuss the mysteries of the universe. In Hymir, he found a love that was as vast and deep as the cosmos itself. From their union a child was born, whom they named Tyr. From birth, the god was special. He had the strength of his mother and the wisdom of his father. He grew up to be a formidable warrior, strong and brave, but also just and wise. And so Tyr, the brave god of war and justice, was born of love as powerful and deep as the very realms of Asgard. Raised in the fortress of Asgard, the divine warrior's childhood was marked by the influence of both gods and giants. From his early youth, he demonstrated a unique combination of strength and wisdom that amazed even the most ancient gods. He learned to walk in the halls of Valhalla, among the fallen heroes and warrior gods. It was there that he learned about valor and courage, watching the Einherjar, the bravest warriors, fall in battle, as they practiced for Ragnarok. As Tyr grew up, Odin, his father, took him under his tutelage. Together they traveled the 9 worlds, from the cold lands of Jotunheim, home of the giants, to the vast fields of Vanaheim, home of the Vanir gods. During these journeys, Odin shared his immense wisdom with his beloved son, teaching him about the mysteries of the cosmos, the magical runes, and the intricate webs of destiny. But it was not only in wisdom that the god excelled. He also became a formidable warrior. He trained with the elite of the warrior gods, learning to wield sword and shield, and spear and bow. His mother, Hymir, also taught him to fight like a giant, instilling in him supernatural strength and endurance. In time, he became a god of war, respected and feared in equal measure. But unlike many gods of war, Tyr was just and honorable. He fought not for glory or conquest, but for justice and order. His strategies were always carefully considered, and his moves were measured. And so, from divine child to formidable warrior, he grew into the great god of war, respected and loved by gods and mortals alike. Long after, under the cloak of darkness and evil, Loki, in a union with the fearsome giantess Angrboda, spawned 3 creatures of unparalleled terror: the serpent Jormungand, the half-dead and half-alive Hel, and Fenrir, a wolf of colossal proportions and strength. Fenrir, a wolf of majestic appearance, and eyes that burned with the voracity of the stars, grew in size and power at a rate that frightened even the bravest gods. An ominous prophecy foretelling the devastation and desolation of the gods at the hands of this giant wolf cast a shadow over the tranquil realm of Asgard. Still, the gods decided to raise the wolf among themselves, hoping to keep the beast at bay. Among the gods, only one dared to approach the wolf, Tyr, the brave god of war and justice, son of Odin himself. His bravery, combined with his respect for all creatures, allowed him to gain the trust of the fierce wolf. An uncommon friendship grew between them, a camaraderie born of mutual respect and understanding. However, as Fenrir grew bigger and stronger, the fear of the gods also increased. Their attempts to restrain the wolf with chains of iron and steel failed again and again, as Fenrir easily broke every link. The prophecy hung over Asgard like a dark cloud, and the gods knew they needed to act. Desperate, they sought the help of the dwarves, master craftsmen whose knowledge of magic and forging surpassed that of any god. The gods commissioned a chain like no other, and the dwarves created the Gleipnir, a chain as light as a feather and smooth as silk, yet stronger than any metal. The elements of their creation were as impossible as they were mysterious: the sound of a cat's footsteps, a woman's beard, the roots of a mountain, the sinews of a bear, the breath of a fish, and the saliva of a bird. When the gods presented the Gleipnir to Fenrir, the wolf was wary of the unusually light and delicate chain. The creature accepted the challenge, but made one condition: one of the gods had to put his hand in his mouth as a sign of trust. If it could not break the chain, it would bite the god's hand. A hush fell over the crowd of gods as they considered the dangerous bargain. At that crucial moment, when the air seemed to vibrate with the tension of fate, it was Tyr, the god of war and justice, who stepped forward. This was a man who had spent his life fighting, not only in the bloody battles of war but also in the delicate balances of justice. He who had always stood his ground in the face of adversity now faced his greatest challenge. The heart of the god of war beat with the rhythmic cadence of a warrior, calm and steady, as he stepped forward. His eyes met Fenrir's, two pairs of eyes charged with respect and defiance, one belonging to a god of war and the other to a beast born of chaos. A silent understanding passed between them, a recognition of the inevitability of what was to come. The nervous god reached out his hand and placed it inside the wolf's gaping mouth. The hair on the back of the neck of everyone present stood on end. Pale faces watched with bated breath. Fenrir's mouth, an abyss full of razor-sharp fangs, could have been a vision of hell itself. However, the god of justice showed no fear. His gaze remained steady, his posture calm and resolute. As his hand rested on the wolf's mouth, Tyr looked up at the other gods. On his face was a quiet determination, a calm acceptance of what he knew was a necessary sacrifice. He nodded once, a deliberate and determined nod of his head. The signal was clear. They were ready to proceed. The tension in the air grew to an unbearable point. It seemed as if all of Asgard had stopped breathing. The wind itself seemed to have stilled at the gravity of the moment. The gods, each holding their breath, proceeded to wrap Fenrir with the Gleipnir. The magical chain, smooth as silk, but strong as the sturdiest iron, slipped around the great wolf. Gleipnir's links crackled with arcane energy as they tightened around Fenrir, a silent promise of restraint in the face of the mighty beast. As the chain tightened, the only sign of movement was Tyr's chest, rising and falling with resolute calm, a silent testament to his unwavering courage. Fenrir, with a diffidence that eclipsed his formidable size, flexed his powerful muscles, testing Gleipnir's endurance. The wolf yanked at the chain, his fury channeled into a superhuman effort to break free. But unlike all the chains it had broken before, Gleipnir held firm, resisting the creature's brute strength with unearthly endurance. The terrible wolf writhed, snarling and growling, its attempts to break free growing more desperate and frantic. But the Gleipnir would not relent. Its magical links flashed, almost taunting the great wolf as they absorbed every blow, every tug, every attempt to escape. It was then that Fenrir's fury turned to treachery. He turned to Tyr, his companion and friend, who had stood by his side throughout his life. The monster's eyes glowed with a mixture of anger and sadness, his gaze riveted on the warrior as he realized the betrayal. With a final snarl, the beast brutally closed its jaw on Tyr's hand. The act was instantaneous, an explosion of pain that seemed to echo throughout Asgard. A scream of agony burst from the god's lips, a sound so anguished that even the Valkyries, accustomed to death and pain, shuddered. The gods looked on in horror, each of them feeling the loss in their flesh. But Tyr, even amid unbearable agony, stood firm. His face was pale with pain, but his spirit did not buckle. Despite the blood flowing from the wound and the pain coursing through his body like lightning, he did not utter a single word of regret or resentment. He stood erect, his stature not diminished one iota, demonstrating to all present the true essence of a warrior. His sacrifice became a testament to his unwavering courage and indomitable will. At that moment, Tyr became not only the one-armed god but also a symbol of courage and honor, an eternal figure of heroism in the Norse pantheon. Many years had passed since the chaining of Fenrir, an eternity in which the gods and the giants lived in a tense peace. The wounds of betrayal had left deep scars, but they had also healed the spirit of the gods. All this time, Tyr, the one-armed god, had devoted himself to his training and meditation, preparing for the day the prophecy had foretold. Finally, that day came. The sky darkened, the sun and moon disappeared, and the earth trembled with the fury of impending war. Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, had begun. Amidst the roars of monsters and the clamor of weapons, Tyr found himself face to face with Garm, the guard dog of the underworld. He was a fearsome beast, with bloody jaws and eyes that burned with the fury of 1,000 hells. But the god did not back down. Despite having only one hand, his stance was firm and his gaze implacable. The battle was epic and harrowing, a deadly dance between god and beast. Garm's strength was monstrous, and every blow, every bite, every growl resonated with the power of the underworld. But the divine warrior, with his unbreakable will, resisted and counterattacked. Every time Garm lunged, Tyr dodged or blocked the attack with his shield, and every time he found an opening, he struck with his sword. His technique was impeccable, each move was carried out with precision and determination. Despite the obvious disadvantage, the divinity fought with the grace and courage of a true god of war. The contest dragged on, an epic encounter that transcended the concepts of time and space, each second of fighting unfolding like an eternity. During countless cycles of attack and defense, Tyr studied his adversary, recognizing his unbridled ferocity and the relentless fury that burned in his eyes. Despite the beast's ferocity, the god found gaps in his fury, fleeting moments that revealed the beast's weaknesses. Finally, after an arduous struggle, the opportunity presented itself. Garm, fooled by the persistence of the god of war, launched into a reckless attack, exposing his flank in a fleeting instant. It was a moment that lasted barely the blink of an eye, but to Tyr, who had been waiting, it seemed like an eternity. The god of war roared, a roar that reverberated across the battlefield, highlighting his indomitable determination. He lunged forward, defying the inevitability of his fate, his body moving with the grace and precision of a true warrior. His sword, gleaming and sacred, rose above his head, slicing the air with the promise of finality. The steel of the gods, imbued with divine light, seemed to burn with the wrath of the stars, a shining testament to his commitment to duty. And then, in an instant suspended in time, Tyr brought his sword down with full force. The blade plunged into Garm, penetrating the beast's hardened skin, tearing flesh and breaking bones. A shudder ran through the battlefield, an ominous omen of the fall of a mighty beast. Garm let out a final growl, a broken wail that echoed with the desolation of an impending end. The fearsome monster, the watchdog of the underworld, fell into a heavy silence, its body becoming an inert shadow in the tumult of battle. Tyr, against all expectations, had triumphed. The divinity's victory, monumental as it was not one without terrible cost. As if in the throes of his last breath, Garm, the guard dog of the underworld, lunged at the god. His jaws, a bloody death trap, closed hard upon Tyr's body, dealing him a blow that not even the bravest of gods could withstand. The wound was mortal, a cruel and merciless laceration that penetrated deep into the mighty god. Every beat of his heart sent waves of throbbing pain through his body. Every breath of air seemed to fan the flames of his agony. The god of war, who had fought giants and monsters, fell beside the beast he had vanquished, his life beginning to fade in an ever fainter thread. But even as he lay on the battlefield, blood from his wound staining the ground of Asgard, Tyr showed no signs of regret. His face, though marked by suffering, was serene. His eyes, though clouded by the veil of death, shone with the light of courage and honor. He had fulfilled his destiny, just as the ancient prophecies had foretold. He had fought with everything he had given everything for those he loved and for what he believed in. He had defied death, had looked into the eyes of the end, and had not blinked. Tyr, the one-handed god, the god of war and justice, proved to be a warrior to the last breath. His life may have faded, but his legacy, his unwavering spirit, and indomitable bravery would live on forever. Thus, on the vast and desolate battlefield of Ragnarok, amidst the echoes of titanic struggles and the clamor of fallen gods and giants, Tyr, the one-armed god, met his end. The valiant god of war and justice, the one who had defied the most fearsome monsters and who had personified courage and determination, lay at rest. His body, scarred by the scars of countless battles, now merged with the land of Asgard, silent and motionless.